I wasn't always an atheist. I was a fundamental Christian for most of my life. Basically, I believed that God, Jesus, the Holy Spirit, all the same person. The Bible in its entirety was the inerrant word of God and the final authority in all matters. When I was in my early 20s, I went to teach English in China, in part to travel and explore the world, but also as a means to get away from the pressures of family and to attend church every Sunday, that kind of thing, just to breathe. That wasn't the cure-all for me, but it was a beginning, I think. Later, when I came home, I reconnected with family and friends, and I had a new niece that was just born before I left, so I was anxious to meet her. But I quickly fell back into the routine of church and so on, a consequence of having to live with my folks while I looked for another job. I dated and married a girl that I had grown up with. She was keeping in touch with me while I was overseas. We started out our relationship and our marriage deeply seated in religion until we went to church less and less, until finally not at all. It's a sad fact that many marriages these days eventually end. Ours did as well. It was unexpected for me. I was in a state of shock and denial, and religion was the first place that I turned to. Eventually, I recognized this as indoctrination and began to really investigate my doubts again. This naturally led to a more in-depth look at what it says in the Bible. This might be the most common thread for people who move away from religion. Actually reading what it is that they're supposed to believe and all the stories that are in there. There are really disturbing things in there. If you are on a similar journey, or if you're looking to defend your religion, there are some challenges in there. Look up subjects like rape, murder, slavery, homosexuality, the list goes on. Interesting conversation with somebody the other day on the telephone. We were talking about homosexuality, and it came up about it being taught in the schools. And this person really took issue with that. They have 3 children in school, quite upset about this subject matter being taught to their kids and other kids. Their argument was that because what was being taught was in direct conflict with their religion, that education to promote tolerance violated their freedom of religion. Teaching children about these things would lead children into thinking these lifestyles were acceptable and perhaps even adopt them themselves. I recognized this as a specious argument. Perhaps there would be kids who would learn about this subject matter and perhaps learn something about themselves. But to say that they learned about homosexual and because they learned it, they decide they might give it a shot, that's ridiculous. There's evidence that suggests our biology has more to do with it, be it in our genes or brain chemistry. What we do know about homosexuality is that it has existed in humans throughout recorded history, and it exists in other species. It is not a uniquely human trait. Hatred, discrimination, intolerance, anything of the sort over something as trivial as somebody's sexual orientation should be a thing of the past. Something we talk about in the sense of, this is how we used to think. This is how our ancestors used to think. How dreary life must have been for some of these people. And let us as a species never return to such backward thinking. Really, how does 2 people who love each other really affect my life? It doesn't. It shouldn't affect anybody's life. When those people share the same gender, all of a sudden it's on the table for debate, scrutiny, and shame. What should concern us as a society is if in any personal relationship, those involved, be it the people who love each other or dependents if they have them, are being treated fairly and lawfully. Like no abuse, for example. That's it. Now this is where the debate got interesting. What started out in homosexuality turned into just morality in general. And I divulged to this person my problem the issue that I take with obtaining my morals from the Bible. When asked why not, I told this person a few of the stories that are in the Bible where God commands his children to go into a neighboring town and slaughter everybody. Now, usually when you read in a story that an entire village was slaughtered, or an army went into a village and slaughtered, it almost goes without saying that the women and children weren't touched. However, this isn't the case in the Bible. These people were apparently occupying the towns and the land that God had promised his children. They're ordered to kill everything that breathes, even babies. I asked this person to imagine themselves as one of these warriors, to picture themselves holding a small, frightened child dangling by the ankle, screaming and terrified, pleading in some form for its life. It doesn't even fully comprehend the danger that it's in, and it doesn't even possess the comprehension of its own language in order to plead for its own life. All that baby knows is that it's in a situation it doesn't want to be in, and it's crying, asking in its own way for things to stop. I asked that they imagine that they have a sword pressed up against this baby's belly, ready to run it through. Then I asked them to take me down the road where following through with this act would be moral. This is a tough question, but one I would argue that all Christians should face. But what struck me as deplorable resonated as sane and justified to this person when they responded, if I was certain that God commanded it, then yes, I would do it. It's this mentality right here that tells me why religion is such a danger to humanity. People might be familiar with the quote, there are good people and there are bad people, but it only takes religion to make good people do bad things. Now, in all honesty, the person that I was debating is a kind, generous, charitable, decent human being. Things they would attribute as a result of their religion, but I would argue that they would be a good person absent that religion. All it took for them to put themselves into this morally repugnant situation was this aspect of their religion, a command from their God. This is the same mentality that enables someone like a suicide bomber to walk into a crowded area that has children, babies, and still blow themselves up, all over this imagined command from a God, not to mention the promised reward. The same behavior that the person I was debating with would look down upon and despise, but they had failed to see that in themselves.